Before we begin, if you believe that justice still matters, if you believe that some families fight battles nobody ever sees, then please, hit that subscribe button right now. Your support tells stories like this one that the world is finally watching. The morning sun rose gently over Brookhaven Estates, the kind of suburban neighborhood where lawns cost more than people's monthly rent, and where the HOA behaved like a kingdom with a crown nobody voted for. At the end of Mapleglow Drive stood a beige two-story house with a cracked walkway and a rocking chair that squeaked when the wind passed. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fancy. But it was home. Inside lived the Harris family. A Michael Harris, a 42-year-old mechanic with hands strong enough to lift an engine and gentle enough to braid his daughter's hair. A Danielle Harris, a nurse who worked night shifts and still found the strength to tuck her kids in before leaving. A Jaden, 12, who loved robotics more than video games. A Maya, 6, whose laugh sounded like the start of a cartoon. They were quiet, hard-working, keeping to themselves. And that was their crime. Not a crime by law, a crime in the eyes of their HOA president, Carol Middleton, a woman who believed rules were holy scripture and who hated anyone she couldn't control. It started small. A letter taped to their door. Violation number 001. Trash bins visible for 13 minutes past the approved retrieval time. 13 minutes. Michael shrugged it off. But then came a violation number 002. Grass not uniformly trimmed. A violation number 003. Unapproved children's toys left in visible yard space. A violation number 004. Suspicious vehicle parked too long. Suspicious vehicle? It was Michael's work truck. The fines piled. $50, $100, $200. Letters, warnings, threats. Danielle tried politely speaking to the HOA office. They ignored her. Michael tried requesting a hearing. They denied him. Then came the message that changed everything. Failure to comply may result in legal escalation and property inspection. Property inspection? That wasn't normal HOA language. Something else was going on. Unbeknownst to the Harris family, Carol Middleton had been whispering to neighbors. I don't think they're fully compliant residents, if you know what I mean. People like that bring trouble. I heard they've got undocumented relatives staying with them. A lie. A bold, weaponized lie. And then Carol called a local field office of ICE. Not to report a crime. Not because she had evidence, but because she wanted them gone. Her official complaint read, possible unauthorized occupants, excessive household activity, suspicious influx of unfamiliar persons. ICE didn't launch criminal raids for HOA gossip, but protocols required them to perform verification visits if a suspicious pattern was reported. 2 agents, Agent Rivera and Agent Collins, were assigned to do what they called a routine check. No guns drawn. No hostility. Just standard questioning. But Carol didn't tell them her real plan. She scheduled her HOA board's property seizure vote for the same morning. All she needed was the Harris family shaken, distracted, overwhelmed. And she'd win. Morning. Birds chirping. Maya drawing on the living room floor. Danielle asleep after a 12-hour shift. Michael making pancakes. Then, a knock. Firm. Professional. Official. Michael opened the door. 2 ICE agents stood there wearing navy jackets, badges visible. Agent Rivera spoke calmly. Sir, we received a report of possible unverified residents. We are required to ask a few questions. Michael frowned. Confused. But he stepped outside, keeping his voice steady. It's just me, my wife, and my kids. Nobody else lives here. They asked for IDs. He complied. They explained this wasn't a criminal investigation, just a verification. But while Rivera took notes, Agent Collins glanced toward the yard and saw Carol Middleton and 2 HOA board members hiding behind her SUV, pretending they weren't watching the whole thing. Collins whispered, "Why does this feel like we were dragged into someone else's drama?" Rivera frowned. This wasn't normal. At 10 a.m., while Michael was still talking to ICE agents, the HOA board began their emergency property violation hearing. Without him present, without notifying him properly, Carol slammed her gavel. Based on repeated unresolved violations, we motion to initiate property seizure steps for the Harris residents. Her board members nodded like puppets. A neighbor recorded it on her phone. When Michael finally re-entered his home after cooperating with ICA, Danielle rushed downstairs, panic in her eyes. Before he could even finish explaining, Carol stood proudly at the end of their driveway holding a thick packet. This is a notice of impending HOA enforcement action. Your property is now under review for seizure due to noncompliance. Michael's blood ran cold. And then, Agent Rivera stepped toward Carol. Did you file the complaint with us? She smirked. Of course. I have to protect this community. Rivera's jaw tightened. Collins added, You filed a federal report stating multiple unauthorized adults live here. There are only 2. Carol blinked. Court. Rivera closed his notebook, voice flat. This matter doesn't fall under our jurisdiction. And for the record, filing misleading reports can lead to consequences. Carol's smile vanished. If you're still watching, take a second to subscribe. Stories like these deserve to be heard, loud enough so families fighting these battles know they aren't alone. Word spread fast. By noon, half the neighborhood was whispering. A federal complaint misused. An HOA abusing power. A family being targeted. One neighbor, an elderly black woman named Ms. Langford, had had enough. She made one call. To her niece, Judge Aaliyah Grant, Superior Court Judge, feared for her rulings, respected for her integrity, and known in her family as the woman who didn't tolerate injustice in any form. By evening, Judge Grant stood on the Harris family's porch, reviewing the HOA's violations, the ICE report, and the neighbor's video. Her face hardened. They used federal systems for personal harassment. They violated your due process rights. They held a seizure vote without your presence. She exhaled. Slow. Controlled. Deadly. Mr. Harris. Mrs. Harris. I'm filing an emergency injunction tonight. Michael choked up. Danielle cried silently. For the first time that day, relief washed over them. At the emergency hearing, Judge Grant presided. Carol sat at the defendant's table, trembling, still wearing her HOA badge like armor. Judge Grant read each document slowly, dramatically, making the courtroom feel like a movie scene. Then she dropped the hammer. The Harris family's property cannot be seized. All fines are frozen pending legal review. And the HOA board is now under investigation for abuse of authority. Gasps echoed. But the twist? Judge Grant wasn't done. She leaned forward, voice low. And Ms. Middleton, based on the evidence presented, you may want to prepare for part 2 of this investigation, because this story is far from over. Carol's face drained of color. Michael squeezed Danielle's hand. The judge stood. Gavel slammed. Case pending. To be continued.